Okay, so why don't we start out, Bonnie, why don't you just give us a quick overview on Title IX?
Title IX is Title IX of the Education Act of 1972, signed into law by President Richard Nixon. And it was actually not intended to be a sports law. It was intended to ban sex discrimination at any institution that receives federal funding. So initially it was assumed to be a means of getting women into law school, med school, grad school, Yale. And then suddenly it was pointed out that this would certainly impact sports programs. So it became really clear that what a lot of universities wanted to protect was the money that went into what they call revenue-producing sports. This is just the beginning of justifications to limit change for women. But as the 70s progress, in fact, women accelerate rapidly once they're permitted to have funding, facilities, and access. But overall, what Title IX did was it gave women legal legs to contest some really outrageous acts of discrimination that don't really save money for men's sports to begin with. The fact is that Title IX gives you a means of reminding a school that you are obligated to provide for both male and female students to do.
Well, why don't we, Mariah, why don't you get into your story? Because you were right when, Title IX was enacted, basically.
Yes. Well, thank you. Yeah, it was all of us around the country were starting to pressure the athletic directors to enforce Title IX. I arrived at Stanford in 1974, and speaking of show and tell, here's my penny. This is what we were given for uniforms. Anybody recognize this?
Yeah.
The way you wear it, no, men wouldn't recognize it particularly because they didn't have to wear it so much, but the way you wear it is like this, like an apron with ties in the back, and it's very symbolic, I think, of those days when women were supposed to stay in the kitchen and not be out there on the basketball court. We were smart Stanford students, so we knew about the law that had passed in 1972, and we spent all of our free time in the athletic director's office reminding him about the law and holding sit-ins because we had older siblings who had lived through the 60s. So we'd heard about sit-ins, so we had sit-ins in the athletic director's office saying, look, you have to start enforcing Title IX.
Let's talk a little bit about what sports do for women. So, Mariah, why don't you start with that?
So to be an athlete is to set goals for yourself, right? To decide for yourself how and when and why you want to move. It's to be competitive, to dare to compete. A lot of women still struggle with competition in the workplace. They don't want somebody else to lose while they are on their way to success. They worry more about how somebody else will feel than about their own achievements. And as an athlete, you learn that actually your achievements inspire other people. Mm-hmm. It's good for you to achieve. They will see and learn from you.
I'd like to point out that as the generation that was brought into soccer, but one of 4 girls at my soccer camp, I was there because I knew I had the right to be there. I was a bad athlete, but a good feminist. I knew I had a right to play. I had a right to play badly. My brother had been nurtured as an athlete from the time he was little, and I was very much behind him, although I was the elder. But I went to soccer camp with him to prove that a girl could take it. Criticize me, knock me down. I'm not going to cry. Teach me. I want to learn. I'm going to get out there and suck, but I want to get better. And how else if I don't try? But the thing is that I had the right to attempt to improve. And what we see with Title IX is if you create the conditions to bring everyone up a level, man, that's good for the whole country. It's good for the whole world.
That the point is that it's not that it's not that I want to be able to run as fast as a man, but I want the opportunity to be able to run. And that's what I think Title IX is all about, is just providing those opportunities. So let's talk a little bit about the Olympics and what role that's played.
The thing about the coverage of women in the Olympics and the women's participation, we can see that a lot of things have been added from the 80s on. Women's soccer, women's softball, weightlifting, pole vaulting. Everyone forgets about that. But, the U.S. women weren't allowed to do ice hockey at the Olympics until Nagano in '98. And the first year they were allowed, they won gold. It's an astounding story. Now we take it for granted that that should be something women are permitted to do. The interesting thing to watch is where stories about women's athletic success have to be connected to a relationship, you know, their fiance or their brother or something. That's the one thing that we do to kind of soften female achievement. We return the storyline to something emotional.
This is the one time we get to see women on television. I mean, even with the zillion channels we have now, in non-Olympic years, the percentage of sports coverage that is devoted to women's sports is between 2 and 3%. You know, so when the Olympics are not on, not that much else is on, except men's sports. But so that's part of why we get so excited about the Olympics. Finally, we get to see women on TV. And yeah, I think I did see something about skating, you know, doing the little dream thing. That's my pet peeve, is the female skaters always were little girls dreaming of success. And the male skaters were somehow never little boys dreaming of success. You don't get to be successful through dreaming. You get to be successful through hard work.
So I went to a game and had to go through a metal detector. Why? In our Smith Center, and I was told the president was there, that Bill Clinton had brought Chelsea to a game, and this was very exciting. So first the men played, and the men won. Great. And then the president got up to leave. And I was like, well, okay, what do I do? I'm the women's studies professor. I'd already observed he was pretty accessible. I mean, there's Secret Service, but he was shaking hands. So I pushed my way through, fast everybody said, "Hi, Mr. President. I'm a women's studies professor here at GW, and I'd really like to encourage you to stay and watch the women play. Don't get up and go just because the men have won. The women actually have a better record right now, and they'd really appreciate your support and your demonstration of your commitment to Title IX as Commander-in-Chief of the United States. And it would really mean a lot to your daughter here, and do you think you could watch the game?" And he said, "Well, I'd love to, but I have an appointment at the White House at 2. And I looked at my watch and said, "Well, you can watch the first 20 minutes of the women's game. Go sit down."
Fathers, too, who have been very active, especially fathers who don't have sons, have been very successful at arguing for Title IX implementation. And so then those fathers do teach the daughters to become athletic, and then they're outspoken at the high school level on behalf of Title IX, on behalf of their own kids. Yeah, you're too young to remember Billie Jean King, but it is one of those things like that people remember where they were when that happened, because it wasn't just a tennis match. It was her saying, women can win, women are equal to men. She was clearly making a feminist statement through sports. So since that's what I've been doing my whole life, it so touched me. She was saying what I wanted to say, which is we can do anything. And she did, and then she just made a huge impact on all women through that. Yeah.